Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make shortbread tarts, and then we're going to fill them with a creamy, no-bake filling, and then top them with fresh fruit. This, because we are making these in miniature, these would be ideal for a buffet because they're like 2 bites. You can make them ahead of time, so there's no fuss on the day of serving, and they're just delicious to eat. Now, we're going to start by making the filling. Ideally, I like to make the filling a day before because it's a little soft when you make it, so it needs at least 8 hours, but preferably overnight to really thicken up nicely. And in fact, you could make this, the filling up to a week in advance. So as I said, it'd be ideal if you're having a large gathering and you want to get things done ahead of time. So I'm going to use a food processor to make the filling. You could use an electric mixer, a hand mixer, or you could even do it by hand. It's pretty easy to make. To start, you will need 8 ounces of cream cheese. That's 227 grams. And use the full-fat cream cheese. I find that the fat-free cream cheese for this makes the filling too soft. And then even when you refrigerate it, it still doesn't thicken up the way I like it quite thick, so use the full fat. And then I'm just going to process just until it's creamy and smooth. Okay, simple enough. And then to that, I'm going to add 1 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk. That's about 400 grams by weight. And then add 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. And then we are going to need the zest of 1 lemon. That's the outer, just the yellow part of the lemon. Now, I'll just show you how I do it. Now, make sure you always wash your lemon first. And then if you have one of these handy-dandy microplanes, they're really nice. Or you can just use the box grater, use the fine part of it, and then you just kind of rub it. And you don't want to get the white part. You just want the outer part. So white is quite bitter, so you just kind of do that. If you have one of these, it's really handy. And then you always take the outer skin off first because we will need 1/3 cup, which is about 80 milliliters of the lemon juice. So always take the zest off first. And then I like to just put some pressure on that roll of the lemon, and that kind of releases the juices. And then I just cut it in half. And then if you have one of these, some people just squeeze the lemon. I find it easier to just use one of these. And then I have a measuring cup and I have a fine strainer because you don't want the seeds in there. And then just do it like so. Get all the juice. Like I said, if you want, you can just kind of squeeze it with your hand as well. And you'll need probably, depending on the lemon, some lemons release more juice than others. It takes about 2 large lemons. So, and I've already done that, so we have 1/3 cup. And just pour that in there. And then I'm just going to scrape. And all we're going to do is process this until everything's all blended together and nice and smooth. The top. Okay. Just check to make sure everything's blended. You don't want the lumps, so make sure. But don't over process it and make it really thin. Just a little more. Okay, so that's our filling. And then just put it into some kind of airtight container because we want to put it in the refrigerator. Like I said, you could at least 8 hours, I would say, and preferably overnight. Especially if you want to, I usually just spoon the filling into the shortbread crust, but if you wanted to pipe, this really needs to be refrigerated overnight to get it thick enough. It really has like a cheesecake-like filling taste to it, with the nice lemon and the vanilla. And then with the shortbread crust and the fruit, it's a really nice dessert. Okay, so I'm just going to put the lid on here and pop it in the refrigerator. So once we have the filling in the fridge chilling, now we're going to start on the shortbread dough. Now, as with the filling, you could make these shortbread tarts quite a few days in advance, or you could even make them and freeze them. So if you'd like large quantities, you can just go ahead and make them and put them in the freezer, and then the day that you need them, it's really simple, just take them out of the freezer. So to start, I'm going to use a electric stand mixer with the paddle attachment. You could use a hand mixer, or you could even make shortbread by hand. You need 1 cup, that's 227 grams of butter at room temperature. And I like to use the unsalted because I prefer the flavor, and I also like to regulate the salt in the recipe. And keep in mind that the flavor of your shortbread depends on the quality of your butter and other ingredients. So this is a time to use the best quality butter that you can afford. So I'm just going to put that in there and just beat it until it's creamy and smooth. Okay. Now with shortbread dough, you just beat the ingredients until they're mixed together. We don't really want a lot of air in a shortbread, not like a cake where you're trying to beat a lot of air into it so it rises. Shortbread, you want them quite compact so you don't beat the ingredients very much. So once that's done, then we're going to, I'm just going to scrape that down. We're going to add a half a cup, which is about 55 grams of confectioner sugar. You might know that as either powdered or icing sugar. And this will make a really nice tender shortbread. If you use like a granulated sugar, be a little more grainy tasting than if you use the confectioner sugar. And to that, I'm also going to add 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Try to use the pure because it has better flavor than the artificial ones. And then I'm just going to beat that until the sugar is beat into the butter. Okay, so you can see I'm not beating this very much. Okay, now in a separate bowl, I have about 1.5 cups, which is about 200 grams of all-purpose white flour. And to that, I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. You might know that as corn flour. You could also use a rice flour as well, and that's 30 grams of that. And then 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I like to use the kosher salt. Now the cornstarch gives it a nice, makes it the shortbread a little crispier, and it also gives you that nice melt in your mouth texture. But if you didn't have the cornstarch in the house, or you don't have rice flour, then just use an extra 3 tablespoons of flour, and that'll be fine. Okay. Just blend all that together, and then I'm just going to scrape all this down. And I'm just going to beat the flour into the butter and sugar mixture just until it's combined. And Again, start this on low speed because you don't want that flour coming up in your face and all over the counter. So as you can see, I just beat it until it comes together. As you can see, you could easily make this by hand if you didn't have a stand mixer. Okay, so now we're not making cookies, we're making little miniature tarts. So if the dough, I'll just put it out here so you can see it. Depending on how soft your butter was when you made this and the temperature of your room, if it's a hot day, it'll be soft. If it's quite firm like this, you could use it right away because we're going to roll it into balls and put it into miniature muffin tins. If it is a little soft that you can't like roll it into a ball, then what I would do is just wrap it in some plastic wrap and put it in the fridge for 30 to 60 minutes, just until it's firm enough to roll it into balls. So what we're going to do now is this amount of dough will give us about 36 miniature muffins, which we're using like a 2-inch, which is 5-centimeter muffin pan. Now, there's a couple different types I've got over the years. These ones are quite deep, and then there's the ones I just bought recently that are quite shallow and seem fatter, but they're all about 2-inch. So whatever type you can find. And then you can either lightly butter or lightly spray your pan. Non-stick pans, of course, are really good to use. And make sure you only want to lightly spray this. If you find you get too much into the muffin tins, then just use a paper towel and kind of brush. And then make sure, because when I spray, I get the spray on top of the pan. And then what I do is just take a paper towel, because, I don't know, I've had this where I haven't wiped the top of the pan, and then when it bakes, your pan gets a little sticky on top. So it's a good thing to wipe that off. So like I said, you will get about 36, depending on how much dough you put into, how thick you make your crust. Now, you will need, it depends on your muffin tin, about a tablespoon, but again, you'll just have to experiment with this. What I tend to do at home is I have a scale, and I make it into a ball, and then I weigh it. And that way I can do this really fast. And I put it on, and for my pans that I use about 1 tablespoon, which is about 15 grams. So then what I do is I just kind of roll it off and measure it, and it goes quite quickly. If you don't, then just take about a tablespoon. And then you just put it into a ball, flatten the ball. We're not rolling out, so if you're a novice at shortbread and have a hard time rolling out, you don't have to worry, because we're just going to press it in. It's a little time consuming, but especially if you're new with shortbread dough, can be a little tricky to roll out, so this you don't have to worry about. And the dough gets too soft, then just put it in the refrigerator and let it firm up a bit, and then carry on. So as you can see, I just press it like that. Now, if there was too much batter, you can just kind of go around with I just go around with my finger and smooth it out like that. Like I said, I like to weigh mine. It goes quicker that way. And Again, I use my middle finger there and just go around. Try to get it as even as possible, but don't worry. Even if the top is a little ragged, that's okay. Once they bake off, they just look really cute, and you fill them with cream, no one will notice. So as you can see, it's a little ragged, so I can just take my finger and go like so. Okay, so finish up the last one here. So now that I've got the one pan done, I still have more to do, but what I'm going to do, because this is the shortbread dough from working with it is a little soft, so I don't want to bake them off right away. So what I'm going to do is just cover the pan, and I'm just going to put it in the freezer for about 10-15 minutes, and that'll firm up that shortbread dough. So while that's in the freezer, preheat your oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 160 degrees Celsius, and then we'll bake these off. Okay, our shortbread has been in the freezer for about 15 minutes, so it's nice and cold. Now, shortbread dough does have a tendency to be quite fragile, so we're going to bake these until they're a light golden brown. You want some color in the crust. And the shortbread will puff up, so about halfway through baking time, take the tines of a fork and then just press down, and that will deflate. But don't worry if they do puff up, because we can always just press them down after they're baked. So we're going to put these in the oven for about 20 minutes until they're light golden, especially around the edges of the crust, and check them after about 10 minutes. Okay, our shortbread tarts are now done. As you can see, they've turned a light golden brown around the edges. And they did puff up, so I did take the tines of a fork, as you can see from here. If they were still a little puffy, you could always take your finger. Now, we need to let these cool completely before removing from the pan. So our shortbread has now completely cooled. You want it cooled so that it doesn't break as you try to take it out. So if you have a non-stick pan like I have here, you can just simply, I just twirl it and then press down on one side, and then they really just pop out. If your pan isn't non-stick, then I just take the knife or a spatula, run it around, and then again I just spin it, and then like that. Or you could just take your sharp knife and just gently into the shortbread to bring it up. And so now once you have those, you fill it with the cream. Now, sometimes, if just for the family, I just take the spoon and just put it in like so. Or you could even let everyone just put as much or as little cream as they want. Or you could put it in a piping bag like this. I've just used a disposable plastic piping bag. I just cut the end off, and you can just pipe as much or as little as you want. Now you could put the cream in the tarts early in the day, but I would garnish, and you can garnish with, as you can see, I have strawberries, blueberries, and you could even chocolate chips or kiwi fruit. But I would put the fruit on shortly before serving. So until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.